So I'm Robert Curran. I'll moderate this brief panel, just 40 minutes today. I'm part of the team at Appledore Research. We look at how the telecom industry is being reshaped by cloud, softwarization, AI, all the new stuff. Just a quick comment. Machine learning, which is generally a proxy for AI, has certainly been part of the telecom industry for at least 10 years, maybe longer. But one of the things we haven't really seen is it delivering transformational results. We talk a lot about transformation, but again, as anybody who's looked at the stock market and the stock prices of telcos, it doesn't look like we've been having a breakthrough in the last decade or so. But that might just be about to change. Reality is AI is something that the telco of the future just can't afford to operate without. Whether it's optimizing energy use, predicting network failures, just answering queries from customers about their bills, telcos just won't be able to do what they need to do at scale, at the speed, and at the cost that they need to going forward. We've seen, as everyone knows, Gen AI has kind of turbocharged excitement on AI generally, but we haven't yet decided all the answers on what we need to do. How fast do we need to go? What should we throw out? What do we need to keep? How do we need to change direction? What should we absolutely hold on to with both hands as we try to get into AI? So, with not too much further ado, if AI is going to be a game changer, and he framed the question up directly, if it's going to be a game changer, the panelists we have today are the people who are going to be responsible for that. Don't want to put too much on your shoulders, but you're the people in the front line. So these are the people tasked with doing something exceptional, something that will make their companies visibly different, visibly outperform their competitors, and make customers say, wow, that's fantastic. I didn't know you could do that. That's where I'd like to see AI have some benefit. So what I'll ask the panelists to do is briefly introduce themselves, and then I have some questions that I really am keen to get asking. We'll go from left to right, perhaps. Ladies first. Just introduce yourself and your company, and briefly what you do there.
Thank you. So I'm Nirali Patel. I am the Group VP of Data and AI for Liberty Global. We are a business that owns 5 telcos across Europe. And so my role is to kind of drive the strategy and elevate every one of our organizations. Is it not loud?
You need to speak up or
closer? Oh my God. No, thank you. So my name is Nirali Patel. I am the Group VP of Data and AI at Liberty Global. I am responsible for all the AI strategy and driving AI at scale in our organization.
Hi, everybody. My name is Benjamin Renaud. I am the CTO for Redis. Redis is a real-time data platform that is the most widely deployed in the world. We've had a big role in making a lot of the web apps out there be real-time and usable. We are heavily investing in AI now so that people are able to provide real-time applications with AI built in. And delighted to be here.
I'm Ayesha Temuri, and I'm the Enterprise Data Officer at Telenor. My role is to work on the machine learning and AI use cases all across the organization, aligned with our vision of being an AI-first telco. So we roll out the use cases, and we work tremendously on the generative AI part that we are just going to cover in the next few decades.
Good morning, everybody. Usman, Javaid. I am the Chief Product and Marketing Officer at Orange Business. Really delighted to be here with this community, and really great to meet some of the old colleagues and friends that I've been, working with in the past in my previous jobs. And my role is I head up all the portfolio for B2B for Orange, and the mission is really to superpower all our portfolio with AI capabilities.
Terrific, thank you so much. Usman, I'm going to start my first question with you. If we're going to talk about changing the game in any business, I think there are 2 fundamental routes you can go. Either massively reduce cost or massively grow revenue. So in your role, particularly looking at enterprise customers, which is a big focus for telcos, where do you see the biggest opportunity for use of AI in the next sort of 2 or 3 years, the biggest actual return on investment?
Yes, thanks, Robert. So I think let's start with some analyst view, right? So McKinsey asked this question and surveyed 130 operators around the world. And what they found is that pretty much everybody is working something on AI, and more specifically, everybody's working on Gen AI. And what they found out is that 70% of the value that they see would come from mainly customer services and as well as sales and marketing use cases. But just follow that is the network transformation and the IT transformation as well. And I think if you look at what McKinsey estimate is that there is in next 2 years there is a potential to gain 3 to 4% of EBITDA improvement in the telco industry using Gen AI in next 2 years, and then that can grow to up to 8 to 9% in 5 years. And and they estimate that both improvement on the top line and the bottom line. But if you ask me personally, clearly we are all working on a lot of productivity improvement and efficiency gain type use cases, right? In customer services, making the customers, the support agent to be way more productive and efficient. How you can drive marketing campaigns to be much more personalized so you can improve your conversion rate. There are use cases in networks where you can leverage AI to be able to drive the investment decisions so you can be much more CapEx efficient. And then, of course, in customer services, how you can resolve incidents faster. You don't need to look at all the alarms that are coming, and then you can use AI to be able to be more specific and reduce your time to fix incidents. So there are many, many use cases, and I'm pretty sure that all of us are working on some of those use cases. So for me, the title of the panel is the game-changing part. And given the context of our industry as telco, right? I mean, we can be very efficiency-driven, and that is what we have been over many years, given we are in a bit of a saturated market. But I believe that that's a really leapfrogging opportunity to think about game-changing stuff and be more value-driven. And in my view, there are 2 areas that we can really think about how we can create value in our industry. The first one is the core telco services, right? I think one of my personal regrets in this industry is that if you look at the services that we offer, the SMS, the voice, the broadband connectivity, I mean, how much innovation we have seen on those services in the last 20 years? Very limited. It's the same voice, it's the same SMS. And I think there is an opportunity to change that with Gen AI. And I give you an example of what we're doing in Orange. So we have developed a capability called conversational SMS. So you can turn an SMS into a conversation. And then we have powered that with the Gen AI engine. So then you can actually have all the knowledge base powering that conversation. And we have deployed that with one of the local councils in France, where the local council want to talk to all the citizens and they want to solve the queries of the citizens and engage them in the most simple way. So there is a number, you send an SMS, and you can ask any question about that local council, when my bin will be collected, this tube light is broken, or, and things like that. And that is very much leveraging the same SMS, conversational fashion, and Gen AI powering that to be able to create new use cases. If you think about voice, I mean, the voice is very static with the voice message. How we can turn that into voice assisted. So if someone calls me and I'm not able to pick that up, there is a dialogue with my agent, my digital agent gets started, and that can take follow-up actions and sort of set up some follow-up appointments and so on. So, and in the network and the broadband services, right? I mean, we all talk about network, AI for networks, how we can use AI to build more efficient networks, but we don't really talk about network for AI, how the Gen AI traffic is different, and how we can offer new services, more latency-aware services, which we can better monetize. So I think these are the really game-changing opportunities that we need to focus on, whereas the everyday stuff would happen anyways, right? But in terms of a short term, as you say, maybe next 2 to 3 years is a lot about productivity and efficiency gain. But I think for me, it's to prepare for the game-changing stuff, which would take a bit of time, and the value-driven approach.
That's nice answers, good examples there. You touched on a couple of points that I want to just follow through on with Nirali. Nirali, in case you missed it, is responsible for AI strategy at Liberty Global. and one of the things that we're interested in is in terms of investing in AI, in practical terms, what does that mean? What does that strategy look like? What are the elements of that strategy? How are you deciding what to spend money on and what not to spend money on?
So at Liberty Global, we've taken a slightly different approach to previous roles. For those that aren't aware, I've worked in healthcare and I've worked in insurance, and then I've joined telco. So we'll see how long my tenure in this industry lasts. But the string that I've had all the way through is data and AI. And as time has gone on, what I've learned in terms of getting success, it's really important for organizations to be really focused on where they prioritize and where they invest their funds and energy through. So at LG, we're focusing on 2 or 3 areas. Customer experience and network experience are 2 key areas that we're putting our energy into and driving those at scale. So for those that do know, Liberty is a very federated business. So while we're a group business, we're very federated, each of, different separate brands. So each of our organizations work differently. So our strategy, while it has a big element around AI, but we think of it more as an AI transformation. So we have the elements of what are our partnerships, what are our change management, what is the infrastructure and the technology that we require to enable us to have scaled products and AI products that work across our 5, telco operators. And what we've done is we've run a sort of very niche program. We called it AI Jordan, a bit from the Dream Team, but have created what we call a squad, that works across our markets, and they're the ones that are made, and that's that kind of collaborative approach as well, alongside all sort of the change management, is what's driving the value that we're seeing today in our organisation. And as Usman sort of says, we've always focused on operational efficiency. And for us at LG, the way we're looking at things is to enable the rest of the world to really embrace AI, we need to provide great connectivity. Otherwise, the rest of the world can't get hold of that AI. It's a real core need. And hence why we're focusing on what is the experience that the consumer has, or the B2B business has, on the connectivity that they get, so they can actually then start using this great technology that's evolving at a rate of knots.
Nirali, in some of our prior discussion as well, you brought up, and I'd just like to draw this out a little bit more, because you're touching on it there. It's not just investment in technology that
it's investment in your people as well. So while, my son says this to me all the time, I write notes in notebooks, and he's like, Mum, you lead AI. Why are you not using, OneNote or something? Why are you not making voice notes and then it converts it for you? So my 14-year-old is telling me, even though I'd lead this topic for our organisation, that you need to improve the way you work. And that's the biggest difference. So when I talk about change management, it's not just about data literacy, but it's all about how do we empower our employees, and therefore also our consumers, how do we educate them to adopt this way of working. So Usman's talking about the chatbot that they've created, the SMS bot for the council, for a French council. How do you educate consumers to ask the question, to use that new technology? So our investment isn't just been in the technology or the LLMs or cloud. It has also been in a heavy investment in the people behind, within our organisation, and doing it in a way where our squads are made up of technologists, data scientists, data engineers, business operations, customer operations teams. So everyone's together. And then the last bit to add to all of that is, how do we do this responsibly? Right? So I wasn't going to mention too much on regulatory, but how do you do all of this with the consumer in mind, and you're doing it sort of carefully and transparently as well? So there's been a lot of work and education in our privacy and cybersecurity teams to uplift their knowledge about the art of the possible with AI, and where does it stop and start? Yeah.
No, very, very interesting. So it's a whole approach. Something else we were touching on was the sort of payback period, just to sort of set expectations. Again, particularly given some of your experience outside of telecom, just give us a flavour of how that looks inside of Liberty Global.
So the beauty about what we're doing at Liberty Global is that we are moving very quickly, right? So we've been very, I'm going to use Mike's words, fast and focused, and it sticks to me constantly. So the payback on AI, and if you're doing it at scale the way we've chosen, it isn't 6 months. You're looking at 12, 18, 24 months. An example that I can give from 10 years ago, so the AI wasn't as brilliant as it is now, when I worked for a healthcare business, is that the change took, or to see the payback. So what we used to do is we used to predict if people were going to enter hospital, predict if they get a certain condition, and you wouldn't see that investment or return on investment for another 2 years, because by the time the patients have changed, the hospitals and the care facilities have changed their processes and the way they work, sort of 2 years later, you would see actually this is a permanent change. So what you can see is quick changes today and quick savings today. But if you want that long-term impact, it does take a while because it's not just about the technology.
Okay, so the game change isn't going to be a handbrake turn. It's going to be it's not quite the oil tanker, but somewhere in between.
The game change is the permanency of the game change, I believe, will be longer than a handbrake turn.
Okay, fascinating. Okay, Ayesha, I have a kind of follow-on question for you, given your role. AI is in whatever form you want to specialize. It depends on data. That's been very clear. And one of the things that comes up a lot in conferences I've been at recently is some of the so-called incumbent operators saying, well, look, we've got, in one case, 140 years worth of accumulated data. And I wanted to understand whether, does the accumulated data of incumbent operators give them an advantage in how they might leverage AI, get value from AI, or is the advantage on the challenger operators, the Rakuten Mobiles of this world, or the much younger companies who are coming in who are saying, no, we can be cloud-based platform, turn it up, overnight. We can be agile. Well, which one of those has a greater benefit?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob, for this question. Actually, before going towards your question about how much real data and how we as a telecom operator can regulate that or work on those areas, I would like to just give first the answer to the present question about AI is a real game changer. I'm a true believer of AI as a game changer, yes. I would definitely see it is. So why it is actually in the present digital landscape where customers are becoming more and more knowledgeable and require immediate services and access to the plethora of the services. They need services like self-service, automation, a marketplace, as a service. And all these areas are emerging, and organization has to strategically align themselves and have the business goal to strategically driven these strategies to monetize and democratize this data. And the more data we have, the more we are able to just work on those real-time data management and all these and monetizing the insights from this data. The change come when the generative AI came in back in 2022, and we use these foundation models like deep learning stuff on present data sets, and the technique like vector embedding, tokenization, prompt engineering, reprompting, chain of thoughts, and RAGs, and all these things, and the fine-tuning our existing data sets on those models that can effectively bring more value to the telecom operator. So coming back to your question after this basic introduction about that, is yes, the more data coming, because I come from a very technical data science background, so I understand the more data we have, the more value we can create from this data. But in telecom, the challenges are more towards how this huge data and how these recurrent data, real-time data need to be managed in a way that we have those real-time data insights. If it is not there, then we cannot just semi-democratization or semi-data management and semi-generative AI modeling and fine-tuning stuff would not help in the longer run. So we started this journey last year when we engaged with BCG. And BCG helped Telenor in identifying about 16 use cases, 16 areas on network, as well as the customer areas, the customer experience management, the general use cases initially. What we identified after that in some of the use cases, generative AI and AI has a weight difference. Like it is sometimes traditional AI perform better than the generative AI stuff. And in network and in automation, in those intelligent intent-based networks that we are using for quite very long time, telecom operators are using those self-automation and autonomous networks already into their space. For the new operator, the change maker that you mentioned, It's not easy, but like Usman said initially, that the real power of this data, because we need to understand the stack in this data. One is the foundation, and then on top of it, there is a data where comes in the infrastructure, cloud, and all these compute, storage, and all these systems. Above that, we have models, and over and above that, we have customer services and customer engaging apps. So the real power of this comes in the part of compute and storage, because sometimes, and most of the time, yes, our infrastructure is not able to just provide the same fine-tuning capability that generative AI is looking. So this is very important, that we need to just go back and work on, so the legacy systems that you mentioned, that cannot support 100% to AI and Gen AI capabilities in the longer run. So we need to really invest on that part.
Is there something that you've seen from your researchers already that say, look, we've got all this data, but actually there are one or two areas where the use of that data is really helpful? I mean, you mentioned networks that are already kind of partially autonomous. They're probably doing a good enough job that you know, the extra use of AI on it might not substantially improve the experience or the performance of the network. Is there anything that you'd call out as being a surprising discovery, maybe in customer service or something else? You think, actually, this is making a big difference?
Yeah, I absolutely. I come to this point that we need to change our approach from network-oriented towards customer-oriented more. Because I come from a technology background, and I usually talk about technology, but now everyone sitting at our level need to just be more customer-focused. And these use cases should be driving the value by addressing the customer problems, not ourselves. So when we were defining the strategy last year, there were 5 strategy pillars that we identified. One was the data management pillar, one was innovation. The first and foremost was the architecture and design part that I was already talked about. So when it comes to the data management, and when we have in telecom real-time data management, this is a great, this need to be first fixed before giving any value to the customer. So coming back to my stack of, on top of that stack, there lies the customer apps, digital services, product portfolio that where customer can access telecom operators. But underlying that, we need to have our house in order to provide these services, because data is huge. And in order to be the game changer, we need to just work on underlying layers at the same time, working on top of customer-oriented areas. But we need to be more customer-oriented than network-oriented this time.
Okay, interesting. It's an obvious segue through Ben. At the end of the day, you know, it's going to be platforms like yours that are doing all the kind of the heavy lifting underneath. Just give us a sense of what the technology implications are of some of the things we've heard from the panelists already.
Yes, absolutely. The first thing that comes to mind is the comment you made about data being the lifeblood of AI is right on. Data is central to AI, it's central to AI training. So the first thing that you need is these trove of data that large operators are sitting on, that they want to use and they want to leverage. That data needs to be available, it needs to be accessible, it needs to be in a form that is trainable, that you can run RAG algorithms on, you can run model refinement. In order to do that, you need a platform that will let you do that. That's the first thing that you need to think about is, you have all this data, how do you make it usable? How do you bring it together from heterogeneous sources and make it usable? That's number one. Once it's available, you have to also think about where in your organization you're going to use it. I think we've touched on a lot of different areas. I can say with a great deal of confidence that you really need to be thinking about every single area of the organization and the business. Where can you bring AI to bear? The reason is that there will be lots of startups out there, lots of smaller companies that are going to be thinking about, you know, disrupting your business. And that was Jeff Bezos said, you know, your margin is my opportunity. And this is true of certainly the business that the telcos are in. they've done this before. They've gone through massive transformation before. This is just another one, but it is going to be it's going to reach to every area: personalization, network operation, support, applications. At every level is going to be relevant. At the end of the day, though, having making the right choice of platform is going to can definitely make the difference between being successful and having a big expensive project that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk with operators, operators are not full of stupid people. They're full of very clever people who've been building technology stacks and layers and architectures for forever.
Absolutely.
And they say, look, we've got a data lake, we've standardized on XYZ platform. How is the decision-making process that we have now different and changed? You talked a little bit about access, you talked a little about kind of really enterprise-wide and so on. What are the other aspects that need additional investment or different investment or diverted investment relative to where telcos thought they were?
There's really two aspects, I think. The first one is, I will call the raw AI aspect, which is how do you leverage the data that you have? How do you build the models that you need? Where in the stack do you decide to insert yourself? That's a big decision right now. Kind of like the early days of the web, there were, people used to run data centers, people used to, design websites from scratch. And over time, frameworks emerged, hyperscalers emerged, and people, started moving up the stack in terms of where they inserted themselves at the technology level. The same is already happening with AI, where, people have been, maybe you call into OpenAI, maybe you run an open source model. You're going to have to make the decision as to where in the technology stack do you think that you want to insert yourself. And part of that, the driving element that's going to determine this is going to be the use cases you're trying to solve. So this is really going back to the first point, which is you need to think about how AI is impacting every aspect of your business. Once you think about that, and once you make a decision as to where you want to leverage it, then you can make the technology decision of where in the stack you want to insert yourself. And then the next question is, how does it fit in with your existing technology stack that you've built, all the things that you were just talking about? And this is where, using technology that works well with what you have, that integrates well with what you have, can save you time and make sure that you deliver quality solutions, things that work. Versus maybe things that are more speculative or not as well tested.
Yeah. So again, it's refreshing to hear a reminder that it's back to the operator, back to customer problems, solve customer problems, prioritize. That let the business priorities drive the technology. Don't get all excited about, hey, we can do this because it's free, because it's open source, and set off on a project to build something without really clear.
Perhaps just to add, Robert, I think you talk about, or you asked a question about the surprising discovery, and I like to share one surprising discovery of Gen AI. We believe that Gen AI is actually making IT more efficient, and what we have seen from our developers is that the project that for traditional AI that took 6 months is taking weeks. And the reason for this is that the Gen AI is very powerful with unstructured data. So you don't need to label the data, make sure it's all structured in one single place before you can actually be able to leverage it. With Gen AI, the architecture allows you to have multiple data pipelines, and then you plug that all into one Gen AI pipeline, and that allows you to be able to not manage all the unstructured nature. Of course, you need to have the data at the right quality, but then you don't need to structure it, you don't need to label it, and then Gen AI take care of it. And then it's the art of prompting and fine-tuning that allows you to get to faster accuracy, and that's the iteration that happens afterwards. So we have seen the use cases that we're doing with traditional AI is months, now it's taking a few weeks.
Yeah, wow.
Yes, I think what you're saying is you want a real-time unstructured data platform.
Certainly the impact on development, internal development, I think is a clear front runner in this process, in this application. And the benefits to customers will come through the end result of that innovation, but that's certainly something we're hearing a lot of. Okay, just checking our time. We're good. No, I don't want to spoil the party, okay? But I did want to just ask the question about regulation. I don't mean AI regulation. What I'm interested in is understanding, in telecom, we've been talking a lot for at least 18 months about telco, techco, hey, we can do it Netflix, and all the rest of it. I think about some practical limits on that. But one of the questions I wanted to hear your views on was whether or not, particularly in Europe, we have a highly competitive, highly regulated, highly structured community of operators, and whether there are limits, external limits to what we can achieve with the application of AI. There are limits to our ability to get global economy of scale. Even if we could, we might not be able to. Again, don't want to take up too much time on it because I appreciate it's quite a niche topic. But if you have any thoughts on that, again, particularly those of you who work internationally across groups, are there other limits? Please do.
Yeah, I would like to answer this question because Telenor is lying in Asian and European markets. So we have this regulation issue in every country, and we are facing European regulation as well as countrywide regulations everywhere. In Europe, it's still, people are not very happy, but the recent law of AI Act that has been there, it is still opening doors for digital services for normal people, and there are very clear privacy and security part that has been covered in that law. When we go through the different geographies and we see the Asian market and European market at the same time, and we need to just define one strategy for the whole group, it is very challenging to see country-wide strategies in the regulation part, number one. Some countries doesn't allow the public cloud adoption, and which is the main most important element of AI native telco. So we need to see that whether one size fit all strategy will look like or not. So it doesn't. But still, I feel that the current recent law has enabled people to work on more digital services, at least for the European market. It has plus and minuses both at the same time.
Nirali.
Hi. So if I think about the AI Act across Europe, I think what it's done, especially for an organisation like Liberty, is given us consistency. So for those that remember what GDPR and the data protection out of the UK 2018 was like, everyone had to implement it, and it was all nuances. So what the AI Act has done is given us consistency, but it's also made us focus, right, on how we should approach AI. So while there is a view, and it's not one of the easiest things to implement, but while there is the view that it's making it more restrictive and therefore telcos can't be as innovative, but it's also reminding us that we're here to, like we've all said, is give a great experience to our customers, to give great services to our customers, and keeping them at the forefront. And I think the adoption of that act and seeing other countries globally take that on and use it, and in the way it's written today, gives us a bit of a more level playing field across operators and businesses, not just in telecoms. And having come from different industries as well, I personally don't, financial services industry, heavily regulated, healthcare industry, heavily regulated if you ignore the AI aspect. So from my experience, I think whilst there are days when we may get quite frustrated with regulation, on the whole, it gives us a good framework and structure, and it helps a little bit around those, the edge cases, how far you should sort of go. But that's just, I don't think that we're going to get any more restricted than today.
Ben?
Yeah, so I think I absolutely hear the advantage of a nice homogeneous regulatory framework and environment for operations. I think that's appealing, especially for telecom. I would be a little bit. I would warn that there is within the market. This is going to be great, but internationally, in a sort of an environment, the competitive environment that includes areas that don't have these constraints, you may run into competition that's going to be difficult to meet when you have competitors that are not similarly constrained by these laws.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with Nirali that regulation is good, actually is great. And for two reasons. One is, it gives power in the hands of people, right? So people want to use AI in a more ethical, responsible way, and the regulations ensure that. Of course, it should not be hampering innovation, but if it's not impacting the pace of innovation, it's good for the consumers. Is good for the telco industry because this is opening a market for us, which is a sovereign services market. What you have seen recently, Apple, when they announced Apple Intelligence, they said, well, they're not going to launch it in Europe because they don't think that they're able to be compliant to the regulations. AWS announced AWS Sovereign Cloud because they see a market where the customers want to consume services in a sovereign fashion. And who is more sovereign than telcos? Nobody. Right? So I think this is a great opportunity for us as an industry to be able to, camp on that. I mean, as Orange Business, we launched a Gen AI trusted platform where enterprises can consume GPUs and LLMs in a fully trusted environment and hosted that services in fully sovereign Orange data centers. And we see a huge demand for that since we launched it in March. And I see many telcos are actually doing something similar. If you look at what is driving NVIDIA's share price, of course, these are the big players, but there are many telcos who are taking the big first steps, getting into that sovereign services market.
Excellent. So I shouldn't be too worried. Is what I'm hearing there. Okay, I'm conscious that we are nearly at the top of the hour, and we're between you and Scott Petty. But I've got loads of questions. But let me just try to bring this session to a close, and maybe we'll have time for a question at the end. Particularly given that some of you have worked in other industries, not just telco. And again, thanks to Annie, you set it up. You said, is it a game changer? So you set the bar pretty high. Is what we're doing in telco totally unique, or are there other examples that you've seen in other industries that have really made a kind of quantum leap, in a real sense of that word, into operating at a different level, or providing really completely different experiences through the use of AI in any form?
If we think from a customer service perspective, I think that's every customer service. I've talked to banks, I've talked to retail, and all peers are doing the same kind of things that we're doing. Introducing bots, etc. I think the game changer bit for telco is going to be, how do you move away from operational efficiency, right, and set yourselves up? So, for example, Orange and Swisscom have done, setting up that whole Gen AI platform. How do you differentiate what you do? How do you add to your service line? And I think that's where AI and generative AI can really help, especially with the infrastructure availability that you've got nowadays. And as Usman said earlier on, we are so sovereign. It's our unique. I don't know, IP, sure. Whatever you want to put, personality, right? So how do you take that, right, and really consumerize it? I haven't got the answer yet, and if I did, I wouldn't share it today.
It's okay, that's okay. We'll give Ray a chance to provide an answer. What other industries have done something, a real breakthrough?
We're seeing it really across a whole host of industries. Financial services, as always, has been very much ahead. We're working with companies like Visa, JP Morgan, people like that are trying to do real-time fraud detections, real-time consumer preference type updates, things that are very relevant in my view to the telco world, because there's this real-time aspect that's frequently relevant. You're seeing it in logistics, you're seeing it in healthcare, you're seeing really across the board, all the big pharmaceuticals. Every industry out there is going through this process of figuring out where can you bring AI to bear, and I expect we'll see the same thing in the telco space.
Anyone want to add any more to that? No.
I'll just build on JP Morgan. Actually, I'm quite inspired by JP Morgan. I mean, you may give an example of Amazon, right? But they are a digital native company, so it's easy for them. But JP Morgan, more than 100 years old company, and their CEO said that his mission is to reduce the work week to 3.5 days and take all the repetitive tasks that the people do in the remaining 1.5 day, right? So give them back that time in the week so that they can sort of have a 3.5 days week, I think. And in JP Morgan, any new joiner who joins the company, the first training they get is not a financial training, actually is the prompt engineering training. So I think it's sort of this, that drive to embrace change is what's going to make a difference between the different industries.
Terrific, terrific. Annie, do we have time for a question from the floor?
Quick couple, if anyone in the audience would like to ask, or are they stand silent?
This,
The first session.
this is a rare opportunity. This is a terrific panel. These guys are at the front line.
Rely on my phone, Mr. McRae.
I kind of take us back to the business case for this. So if you think about AI, and you think about just how are you figuring out where your organization is from a effectiveness position, and how you're then using the ineffectiveness of it to generate a business case for the deployment of AI? And I'll give you an example. We as telecommunication operators, we have 5 nines. The network runs great, never goes down. So what is the difference that you're bringing, and what metrics are you using to ensure that your investment in AI is going to actually generate some sort of value? Because I don't see many organizations looking at, everyone talks about data. Of course we need data, but actually what's the actual kind of dashboard saying, and what do you need to do different to make that dashboard even more green than you're already saying it is?
So every case that we run and that we scale is driven through value. So we look at metrics, so from call handling time reduction to field engineering job time reduction, to the blending the skills of our engineers, or our call center staff as well, through the having given them knowledge bases. So, and that's the key thing that we've set up is sort of a council that tracks value, which I thought is quite, for a telecoms business, so we're very metric driven and we're always looking at operational metrics. So the focus has been, how do you do that? And it's been a very bottom up approach. I feel like you're going to challenge me on this now. Yeah, and that's, it's what is the experience of the customer. So if they had a good call, have they called back? Because we managed to reduce the call time, but, is it repeated call? Did they call back in 30 days? And those are the kind of metrics that we track are more valuable to us.
Yeah, I think for us, this is not just one metric, but I think perhaps one that we use a lot is the customer NPS and the employee NPS. And a lot of use cases actually first impact the employee NPS before they impact the customer NPS. And of course, there are other things which are about CapEx avoidance and savings and what have you.
Yeah, and I'll add to what Usman is saying. So when we come across the adaptability and option methods, we usually see the TCO and the TTM for every use case. So every use case requires itself the complete data processing or pipeline and everything until the time it's been up for the market for adaptability. Yeah.
Good answers. I know Annie's going to, very quickly.
Hi, I'm curious. These are some of the most expensive technologies, from servers to run them to models. Where do you think the balance sits between letting somebody else go first to make the expensive mistakes and then rolling out that strategy versus being on the tip of the spear?
We're really happy for someone to go first. So those that probably may have heard Mike says it a lot, we don't need to be first, we just need to be fast. So the approach is we will learn from others and then follow and learn from their mistakes too.
All right.
I see a lot of titles with data on it, and I've been in industry for decades now. I've seen data programs where you're building the copper pipes under the sink, and it's just moving from ab initio to Hadoop to big data, whatever. I've not seen any telco that has actually capitalized on data. What are the reasons, and what are you going to do about it?
I somehow disagree with this statement because they are capitalizing, and this is why they are there in the market. And these days, we have more focus on B2B and B2C customer than the real voice customer. So the data is the biggest revenue for telecom operator these days. So it is not the right comment. Maybe Usman would be better able to answer that because he's actually working with B2B and B2C markets.
Yes, to be honest, what I see is that there is a bit of, I think we do better for our enterprise customers than we do for ourselves. So I partly agree with you, Nick. I think we have done a lot in terms of using data to drive our processes and driving efficiency, and even before AI, RPAs, and then AI, and then Gen AI. So the efficiency focus has always remained. And that is sort of my key point, is that we need to be a bit more value creation. And this is where we haven't really done much, leveraging data to create more new revenue streams.
Okay, I think we'll draw it to a close there. Thank you very much to the panel. Please show your appreciation in the conventional way. Thank you very much, everyone.